This video was made possible by Gamersgate.com. Download games anytime, anywhere. Skip it up and that up. This is interesting. This is damn interesting. And I've seen other people make videos on it. It's not as black and white as some Nintendo fanboys would like to make it. Oh, the Wii U is next gen. Boom, there it is. I think it's a lot more capable than people think. Is it not as powerful as the PS4 and Xbox One? Of course, it's not. I mean, specs-wise, it's a fact. It's not. But I think the Wii U, I've said this before, you guys know I've said it, can hold its own. And if it gets enough of an install base, trust me, third-party developers, limited hardware or not, are going to cram their games onto the Wii U. All right? And honestly, I don't think they're going to be as inferior as people think. Because guess what? As of now, there's more 1080p 60 frames per second games on the Wii U than there is going to be on the Xbox One and PS4. Here is a list for you. It comes from cinemablend.com. They made one small mistake, but everything else they said is true. Here are the confirmed 1080p 60 frames per second games for the Wii U. Their upcoming titles and currently released titles. Super Smash Bros. U, Bayonetta 2, Mario Kart 8, Rayman Legends, and Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. Which, okay, that one you could say, hey, it's basically a remastered game from a previous generation, or I think it comes from the 3DS. I'm not sure. I don't follow the Monster Hunter series that much, but you guys, I'm sure, will comment below and let me know. The mistake they made, though, which I'm kind of surprised Cinema Blend did this, is they said that the Wind Waker HD is 1080p 60 frames per second. Now, it's 1080p native, I know that, but it ain't 60 frames per second. It's 30 frames per second. I own the game, so unless my eyes only have a 30 frames per second refresh rate, or a 30 hertz refresh rate, I mean to say, the game's 30 frames per second. So it's not 6 games, it's 5 games for the Wii U. When it comes to confirmed PS4 games that are going to run at 1080p 60 frames per second, things aren't looking as good. Killzone Shadowfall, only the multiplayer as of now, is going to run at 60 frames per second. I mean, I've seen this on multiple websites. Maybe that'll change. Maybe they'll get the single player up to 60 frames. It's kind of late in the game, though. It's the 11th hour. But hey, who knows? You know, all you have to do is put a patch in there and redesign some code. Maybe they'll do it in the final hour and send out a first day patch or a first day update. Drive Club, they're targeting 60 frames per second. Flower, 60 frames per second. These are all 1080p, by the way. And Resogun, if I'm saying that wrong, I apologize, or Resogun is 1080p 60 frames per second for the PS4. The Xbox One, things ain't looking too good. Killer Instinct, we all know, I did an article on that a while back, 720p 60 frames per second. Forza 5, 1080p 60 frames per second. Call of Duty Ghosts, 1080p 60 frames per second. I'm going to assume 60 frames per second. The article doesn't confirm that, but Call of Duty isn't a very demanding game, so I'm sure they're going to be able to get 1080p 60 frames per second on both the PS4 and Xbox One. But that's an assumption. I'm not backing that up with any facts. Now, an interesting side note before I give my opinion on this, Super Mario 3D World is only running at 720p 60 frames per second. Yeah, Bayonetta 2 is going to get a full 1080p 60 frames per second? Really? Nintendo, what's up, man? You're really having that tough of a time with the whole 1080p HD generation thing, aren't you? Anyway, now, I know a lot of people are going to say, I'm thinking the same thing, Rich, these games aren't as demanding, they don't have as many lighting effects or tessellation and shadows and all the other pretty crap that you're going to have in the next-gen games on the PS4 and Xbox One. Okay, that's true, but my point being is that this shows I thought of every name except the one I wanted to say. The Wii U is not going to be as much of a slouch, and I've said this before as people think. Now, I see people make some good points, but I'm going to counter them. I think it was Brodio who said, you know, there's only 2 gigs of RAM in the Wii U, and there's 8 gigs in the Xbox One and PS4. You tried to run a computer with 2 gigs of RAM, you would be in sorry shape, as opposed to 8 gigs. That's true, Brodio, but you're thinking of computers. Consoles are totally different. You know, they're not trying to run Windows. They're running very sleek and slimlined, or streamlined, I mean to say, operating systems that don't have a billion tasks running in the background. So you could do a lot more on a console with a lot less hardware capability. You understand what I'm saying? So it'll be interesting to see, man. I'm hoping that these big first-party games that are coming out for the Wii U draw in a bigger install base. And I'm telling you now, if that install base ends up being there, you're going to see the AAA third-party games get shoehorned onto the Wii U. And you know what? I don't think they're going to look that much worse than they will on the PS4 and Xbox One. I'm telling you, man, I promise you that will, because if the install base is there, they're going to get the games to come on the console because the third-party developers will see that there's money there. If they can make money on the console, the games will be there, no matter how, quote-unquote, limited they think the hardware is. I mean, for Christ's sake, they're putting Battlefield 4 on the PS3 and Xbox 360, 7- and 8-year-old hardware. If they could do it on there, they could do it on the Wii U. All it needs is the install base and it'll happen. So this is good news to me. I'm glad to hear there are native 1080p 60 frames per second games on the Wii U, and I have a feeling if the install base grows, which it will, that we'll see more third-party and first-party games coming from Nintendo and other developers that will be in full HD. And this is a good thing for Nintendo. It shows that they're a viable platform for third-party games and AAA third-party games, not like Dance Dance Revolution shit. So anyway, folks, make sure to rate, comment, favorite, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for supporting Review Tech USA. Have a good one.